Welcome to Truth Discovery. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In a landmark decision that will be studied for generations, the U.S. Supreme Court has brought an end to the Trump administration's sweeping use of tariffs, a move that is already sending shockwaves through the world of global trade. This historic ruling marks a pivotal moment in the ongoing debate over the balance of power in American government and the nation's role in the international economy. For years, tariffs were wielded as a tool of economic leverage, affecting everything from the price of everyday goods to the stability of entire industries. Now, with a single decision, the highest court in the land has fundamentally changed the rules of the game. The Supreme Court's ruling does more than just end a controversial policy. It rebalances the delicate relationship between the executive and legislative branches of government. By curbing the president's unilateral authority to impose tariffs, the court has reaffirmed Congress's constitutional role in shaping trade policy. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are now faced with the responsibility of crafting new legislation that will define how America engages with the global marketplace. This decision is a reminder that the nation's system of checks and balances remains a living, breathing force in American democracy. The effects of this ruling are already being felt across the country. For consumers, it could mean lower prices on imported goods, from electronics to clothing, as tariffs are rolled back. Workers in industries that rely on global supply chains may see new opportunities and challenges as companies adjust to the changing landscape. Business leaders are closely watching the markets, and Wall Street has responded with optimism, seeing the potential for increased stability and growth. Investors are hopeful that the end of unpredictable tariff hikes will encourage more robust international trade and investment. However, not everyone is celebrating. Industries that once benefited from tariff protections now face a future filled with uncertainty. Factories that relied on those measures to compete with foreign imports may need to adapt quickly or risk closure. Workers in these sectors are bracing for change as companies reassess their strategies in a more open and competitive global market. The transition will not be easy, and some communities may feel the impact more acutely than others. The Supreme Court's decision is also a call to action for Congress. Lawmakers must now grapple with the challenge of redefining America's economic role on the world stage. Debates are already underway about how best to protect American jobs, while fostering innovation and competitiveness. The choices made in the coming months will shape the nation's economic future and influence its relationships with trading partners around the globe. Around the world, America's international partners are watching closely. Many see this ruling as an opportunity for more stable and predictable trade relations. Diplomatic channels are opening as countries seek to renegotiate agreements and strengthen economic ties. The hope is that this new era will bring greater cooperation, reduce trade tensions, and create a more level playing field for all. In the end, the architecture of global trade has been profoundly altered. The Supreme Court's decision is more than a legal ruling. It is a turning point that will shape the flow of goods, the fate of industries, and the lives of millions for years to come. As the world adjusts to this new reality, one thing is clear: the story of American trade is entering a bold, new chapter. Trump's tariff policy aimed to revitalize U.S. manufacturing and reduce trade deficits. Tariffs on steel and aluminum sparked a trade war, especially with China. The administration used national security as a justification, leading to legal challenges. Retaliatory tariffs from other nations targeted American exports, disrupting trade. The era was marked by tension and economic consequences worldwide. The legal battle that unfolded was not just about tariffs or trade agreements, it was a profound test of the American system of checks and balances. At its core, the dispute centered on the separation of powers, a foundational principle enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. This principle dictates that the legislative, executive, and judicial branches each have distinct roles, preventing any one branch from accumulating too much authority. For centuries, Congress has held the reins when it comes to trade policy, wielding the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations. This authority is rooted in Article 1 of the Constitution, which grants Congress the ability to impose tariffs, negotiate trade agreements, and set the rules for international commerce. However, as global trade became more complex, Congress began to delegate some of its powers to the president, allowing for more flexibility and swift action in a rapidly changing world. Over time, This delegation of authority was seen as a practical necessity. The president, as the nation's chief diplomat and commander-in-chief, was often better positioned to respond quickly to international developments. Laws, like the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, gave the president the ability to impose tariffs for national security reasons, but with the expectation that such powers would be used judiciously and with oversight. When President Trump invoked these powers to impose sweeping tariffs, it sparked a fierce debate. Supporters argued that strong action was needed to protect American industries and jobs, especially in the face of what they saw as unfair trade practices by other countries. But critics saw things differently. They believed the president was stretching the definition of national security to justify economic measures that should have been debated and decided by Congress. The controversy quickly escalated, with lawmakers, business leaders, and legal scholars weighing in. Many argued that the president had overstepped his constitutional authority, using national security as a broad and vague justification for imposing tariffs that affected a wide range of industries. This, they said, undermined the careful balance of power that the framers of the Constitution had intended. Legal challenges soon followed, with opponents of the tariffs filing lawsuits that questioned whether Congress had given away too much of its own power. The courts were asked to decide, had Congress delegated its trade authority too broadly, effectively allowing the president to act without meaningful limits? Or was the delegation of power within constitutional bounds, given the need for executive flexibility in foreign affairs? The Supreme Court's decision in this case was closely watched, not just by those involved in trade, but by anyone concerned with the structure of American government. In its ruling, the court reaffirmed Congress's central role in shaping trade policy, emphasizing that while some delegation is permissible, the ultimate authority rests with the legislative branch. The decision sent a clear message. The Constitution's checks and balances remain a vital safeguard against the concentration of power. This landmark ruling stands as a powerful statement on the enduring importance of the separation of powers. It reminds us that, even in an era of rapid change and global challenges, the balance between Congress and the president is not just a matter of tradition. It is a cornerstone of American democracy, ensuring that no single branch can act without accountability or oversight. In a landmark decision that has sent ripples through the legal and political landscape, the Supreme Court has ruled against the executive branch's use of emergency powers to impose tariffs. This case, closely watched by legal scholars and policymakers alike, centered on the president's authority to act unilaterally in matters of international trade, especially during times deemed as national emergencies. The court's decision marks a significant check on the executive's reach, emphasizing the importance of constitutional boundaries and the separation of powers. The ruling specifically addresses the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, a law that has often been cited by presidents to justify swift action in the face of perceived threats. By limiting the president's authority under IEEPA, the court has clarified that such powers are not without limits, and that the executive cannot bypass established legal frameworks to impose tariffs on foreign goods. This decision underscores the judiciary's role in interpreting the scope of presidential power and ensuring that no branch of government exceeds its constitutional mandate. As a direct result of this decision, tariffs that were previously imposed on major trading partners under the guise of emergency powers are now considered unlawful. This has immediate implications for international commerce, as businesses and trading partners must now adjust to a new legal reality. The ruling is expected to foster greater stability and predictability in global markets, as it curtails the ability of any single administration to disrupt trade relationships without congressional oversight. Perhaps most importantly, the Supreme Court's decision compels the White House to engage more closely with Congress when it comes to shaping trade policy. No longer can the executive branch act alone in imposing sweeping economic measures. Instead, the ruling reinforces the need for collaboration and debate between the legislative and executive branches, ensuring that major trade decisions reflect a broader consensus and are subject to democratic checks and balances. The decision was not without controversy. Dissenting justices argued that the court had overstepped its own authority by intervening in what they saw as a political question best left to the elected branches. However, the majority opinion prevailed, emphasizing the judiciary's duty to uphold the Constitution and protect against the concentration of power in any one branch of government. Ultimately, this ruling sets a powerful precedent for the future, signaling that presidential power, especially in the realm of economic policy, will be subject to meaningful limits. Legal experts believe this decision will shape the contours of executive authority for years to come, reinforcing the foundational principle that in the United States, no one is above the law. The ruling triggered dramatic market movements worldwide. U.S. stock futures surged, signaling relief from tariff pressures. International markets saw gains, viewing the decision as trade war de-escalation. Commodity markets, like agriculture, anticipate normalized trade flows. Some U.S. industries fear renewed foreign competition. The decision marks a complex path to rebuilding global supply chains. The ruling creates clear economic winners and losers. American consumers benefit from potential price reductions. Domestic industries face renewed import competition. The U.S. government loses a significant revenue stream. Internationally, nations regain access to the U.S. market. The U.S. must find new strategies for trade negotiations. The tariff era's end has a profound human impact. Families faced higher costs on everyday items due to tariffs. Farmers suffered from retaliatory tariffs on exports. The ruling offers hope for rebuilding trade relationships. Workers in protected industries now face competition fears. Small businesses hope for relief from tariff-induced pressures. The Supreme Court's decision is pivotal for trade policy. It limits executive power, reinforcing Congress's role. Economists applaud the move away from broad tariffs. Future administrations must collaborate with Congress on trade. The ruling encourages diplomacy over unilateral actions. A new trade toolkit is needed for strategic negotiations. The decision marks a turning point for U.S. trade policy. It reaffirms Congress's power in commerce regulation. The U.S. can now rebuild trust with international partners. Challenges remain in managing economic transitions. Informed citizenship is crucial for shaping future policies. A collaborative trade policy can ensure a stable future.